Well, I began the week stuff with watching a Hack Quantum. It was actually pretty good. I mean, maybe not my favorite dot hack thing out there, but I was really quite surprised at a lot of things that they got right. One of those things which I think I probably never talked to y'all about it, but I think a complaint usually leveled at Hack Sign is some people kind of watch that wanting there to be more action involved, I guess. Because it takes place inside an MMORPG, so, you expect action. Although, I guess Hack Quantum felt like it had a lot more of that to it. I was almost tempted to tag it in anime action myself, but decided to go simpler with anime sci-fi. And in the case of Hack Quantum, that's actually probably more reasonable than any previous dot hack game I've ever seen, because that one almost feels like it has a more sci-fi feel to it with a couple of the concepts. Kind of getting a little bit closer to maybe Ghost in the Shell territory, possibly. Um, in certain ways of thinking about it, it's nowhere near the same in terms of what they're trying to cover, but you this is the one that starts showing any kind of similarity to that, in my opinion. Other than that, I thought while it was pretty good, there was something about it that still felt a bit off, and I'm not sure what that was. All I know is after watching that, I knew that I was going to have to rewatch Dot Hack Sign, and I did that, and I enjoyed it again. It's one of my favorite animes, one of the top favorites, something that I just can't help go back and rewatch at times, and that actually was most of my watching for the week, I think. And I'm not complaining because, again, it's one of my favorites. Hack Sign is. And part of me can kind of see why. And it's kind of complicated, where at the same time it kind of mirrors some of my own impressions, my own... I can never remember the word. Maybe some misgivings I have about the world. Maybe just feelings about, hey, it'd be nice to never have to deal with the real world ever again. Concepts like that. But it kind of gets out of that in a way that doesn't feel too unrealistic or unreasonable, and actually is kind of uplifting because of that. Because I can kind of sympathize with the main character, who's kind of a douchebag. The other part of that, though, is that having played the games and understanding a lot of the concepts that they're really hinting at in the series, those things don't bother me, and instead they're more like just a really exciting, great trailer preview for the games, which I don't want to go back and play because it took me a long time to get through those. And I'm already pressed for time as it is. I could probably take a month off and maybe play through them again, and maybe I'd be faster and actually get them done within the first week or something. I don't know. But it'd be nice if I play it more like Skyward Sword, where it's just something I do every once in a while. And Skyward Sword's coming along. I mean, I think I'm getting close to the end of the game, but I'll find out more near the end. All I know is it's had some really neat twists in it so far, and yeah. Anyways, I just went from Hack Sign to Skyward Sword there. Hack Sign, I really enjoy, and in particular, I like to single it out because I really like the story of what happens to Tsukasa and the stuff that happens around there, because that's just spectacular, in my opinion. Let's see, and since we're talking about things rewatched, let's see, I also rewatched The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. In this case, it was a friend who came over and he hadn't seen it, and it's like, oh, well, if we've got choices on what you're going to watch, Hack Quantum or The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, well, let's watch The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, because that one's probably really, really, really close to the top favorites. Which is kind of interesting because, watching it, you can kind of see a lot of the similarities between Girl Who Leapt Through Time and Summer Wars, and Summer Wars I hate. It's mysterious. I can understand why. I feel like Summer Wars almost has a kind of opposite moral to The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, just as an underlying theme, I guess in a nutshell, it almost felt like the characters from Summer Wars didn't really grow and learn from their mistakes or things like that. And that really irks me. Whereas The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, you know, it's kind of like taking a kind of... I don't know how to appropriately describe her, but she comes through as kind of a character that just coasts through life, and what happens happens, and the events of The Girl Who Leapt Through Time just kind of give her the ability to kind of be more retrospective on things and to think about things a bit more. Which is, I guess, why I like that one better than Summer Wars. Let's see. The list is there. So I also... Now, I didn't actually watch them, but I did thumb through them to take a look at them. Actually, they're right here. I think I even mentioned these last week. I had 2 different DVD versions of Kite, and I was maybe considering watching them back to back and comparing them, and I ended up just flipping through and realizing these are actually as different as the director's cut and the special edition, which basically means that every fucking DVD release of Kite is different, which makes me wonder what the Blu-ray is going to do. But the difference between these is actually much more straightforward and easier to explain than the difference between the 2 hentai versions of Kite. The edited version of Kite here, which is the older one, basically follows a simple rule of no nudity, no sex. Right? The sex part has to be removed to make it non-hentai, and the nudity is kind of along the same lines. They do the same thing? The remastered edition, however, basically only does no sex. So there's nudity and implied sex. It's kind of a... that's what surprised me, is I knew how this one had been edited so that the non-important sex scenes weren't in there, and the messages trying to be conveyed with them were conveyed in a different way, with like one scene where it was obviously a clip from this multiple clip flashback, but one part of it was just stretched out about 1/3 speed, and it stands out pretty much in an annoying way. But then when I was flipping through this one just for shiggles, I was really quite surprised that a lot of that scene was intact, because most of that is just kind of the preparation for that stuff. I'm like, is this one completely unedited? And I looked, and it was edited. It had the very explicit sex scenes taken out. But then it's like, you know, a lot of anime nowadays, they show nipples and naked people as long as they don't show the naughty bits and stuff like that. And this one figured it was okay to do that. Very, very interesting. It means that all 4 versions of Kite have different edits of 3 or 4 key or relevant scenes. And, well, now I've done that, I guess I'm ready for the Kite Blu-ray release, which comes out hopefully at the end of the month, if everything goes according to plan. And then I'll be able to say with a lot of certainty exactly how it's been edited. Probably just going to say that it's the director's cut, because I think it says it is. But, you know, sort of like how the remastered edition of Kite is different from the older edited edition, you know, maybe the director's cut is allowed to be more like the original, which would be the special edition, than the director's cut that's released right now. I'll find out then. Yeah, there we go. Interesting stuff. So let's see. On Sunday, I was walking around a whole lot, and one of those things I did was I walked to the theater to watch The Secret World of Arrietty. And I remember to pronounce it that way because it's like Aries, the sign, the constellation, but it ends with Etty, like a Yeti or a snowman or something like that. Abominable snowman. Whatever. Anyways, the movie itself, I actually thought it was pretty good. I'm not a big fan of what I consider to be Ghibli's images, feelings, sort of releases. I think they probably started doing that sort of stuff with Totoro. As some of them are better than the others, some of them are pretty mediocre, others are just like there's the animation's interesting, but not keeping me. It's not keeping my attention. I think Ponyo is the recent example of that, where there's a story and a conflict there, but a lot more of Ponyo is about expressing the visuals and the feelings and the environments and stuff like that, I think. And for some reason, that just doesn't synchronize as well for me. So this means I'm bringing that up because Arrietty is closer to the other camp, which is it's got an explicit story to tell, and I think a lot of that, of course, would be that it's adapted from a series of books, The Borrowers. I've not heard of it, but I guess some people I've talked to have. It may have been a popular series of books, perhaps. I'm not sure, but all I can talk about is the execution, and something felt a little bit off about the male character's voice actor, but it wasn't completely bad. I'm not exactly sure what it is, and that won't be something I'll know until I watch it again on DVD and compare it to other dubs, which will probably just be the Japanese dub. But it'll be something that I'm kind of interested in doing because at the same time it's not something I really thought about a whole lot. It just something felt a little off there, and I don't remember what. I do remember, however, that the visuals, especially with the borrowers, who are of course little people, and I guess actually probably about the size of a finger, about that big maybe. A lot of that was interesting because there was a lot animated to give the impression that they were smaller people dealing with slightly different physics than we're used to, especially with regards to water tension, surface tension of water, because you kind of feel like they're smaller people because of little things like that. I'm not entirely sure if they really got all of the dimensions right. It can be really hard to keep sizes consistent in situations like that, and I couldn't help but feel like maybe there were parts of it that felt slightly off, like I wouldn't imagine something that small normally existing. But it didn't really detract from the story, and it didn't feel like a completely pointless story or anything like that. It kind of felt meaningful chance encounter sort of situation, and there's something about that that's kind of nice and pleasant. So it was overall a very enjoyable watch, and probably sits around in the middle of my enjoyment of Studio Ghibli titles, where there's definitely titles that I care a little bit less about, and it's definitely not up there with my the big guns, and so it doesn't compare to my favorite Nausicaa. But I'd still say it was a really good movie. Let's see. Next up on my little list here, I finished Sherlock Hound, and I guess I don't have much to say about that other than it was pretty much similar to the way it was. I don't think any of these episodes were the ones directed by Miyazaki. I'm pretty sure I covered those all in the first couple DVDs. So, what it basically boils down to is, the way I've thought of trying to describe this is, the series is it's kind of Saturday morning cartoonish with a sense of British class and style or something like that. Maybe not like real British, I assume that it's just mostly stereotypes. Even if it's not something that was made in the US and thus the US stereotypes, it doesn't mean Japan doesn't have stereotypes about them as well. But that's the impression I get. So, Moriarty does a lot of very stereotypical cartoon villain sort of things where it's like, we're going to steal the gold by making a statue out of it and flying it out on an airplane or something like that. Or, and this ignores the fact that gold is really fucking heavy. But, at the same time, there's a, well, I guess we're going to have to skip out on Tune Crumpets to look into this one. So, kind of things like that. It's not bad, but overall, I just hoped that something about Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty would probably have a bit more thought-provokedness to it. And Case Closed is probably an example of something slightly more along those lines, except that one didn't have a villain. That one felt like, they're trying to make you think that people are thinking, whereas Sherlock Hound is more, you watch it and you just get the impression that all the entire time Sherlock has a pretty good idea of what's going on, and he's just looking for corroborative evidence, I guess. So I don't know, not bad, just probably not my cup of tea, I guess, to put it. And I guess since we've talked about stuff rewatched, I might as well also mention that I'm continuing to rewatch One Piece with my friend. I'm actually really good at doing that because in the third season, they basically, because the events of the second season gained the attention of some rather important individuals in the series, the series did an episode setting up for events sometime after the third season, but since I've only seen to the end of the third season, it's been, what, a year since Funimation's release of the final DVD of that. Basically, that means that I had long forgotten that happened, but there was a meeting of very important people that are probably going to be future villains that our main characters have to deal with, and it was really nice to see them again, even if it was just for the one episode. And just to just a refresher, basically, since I think an estimate I read on Anime News Network was that Funimation might have thought a summer release of the fourth season may start. I could be mixing that up with something else. That's me being really hopeful that it's going to happen then. Sort of like how Unico, the two Unico movies are supposedly going to be released in the middle of May. And I have every reason to believe they will be, because I think it's Discotek that's going to release them. And I don't remember what else they've done, but at a minimum, I have every reason to believe they're going to be doing that and they're going to be on time. It's just, I kind of trust release dates actually showing up in places that I'm going to order stuff over what a company has actually said. Because, that usually to me means that the product is on the way, blah, 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 blah. Well, there we go. That's actually a good amount of anime to talk about this week. Some very interesting and thought-provoking titles all throughout there, which I guess overall makes it a very nice watching week, even if I didn't knock down one or two other backlog titles because I rewatched Hack Sign. It's not too bad, though. Now, as for this coming week, since Broken Blade's pretty much the only new thing, that means there's a lot of potential for me to just try and catch up on old stuff again, although I don't know how long it'll take me to get through Broken Blade, and to be honest, I'm going to actually try and finish Skyward Sword before I do anything like that, so it'll be interesting. I'll go ahead and let y'all go so that I can start doing that.